Teach me to place no one above myself.
Hey everybody, welcome in to the Big Bro Show. I am your host, Ty, joined alongside my co-host as always, Jared.
Hey.
And we have another guest here with us today, Nathan. Welcome in, my friend.
How's it going?
So this is going to be an interesting podcast. You had told me a little bit about yourself, and I derived some questions based off of that. But first and foremost, we have our first Wisconsinite on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in. I'm not going to say where you live, but I'm very familiar with the area, and it's actually pretty close to me. So you and I had talked with each other on Reddit, which makes it an even smaller world than we actually realize.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. Let's get into this. So one little icebreaker that I like to use with everybody, Nathan, is what's something about you that most people familiar with you would not know?
So when it comes to my job, I actually don't like editing that much. And I like more of the process behind it of like, I like giving these young, we're going to get into it more later, but I like giving these young guys jobs. I like this podcast we're working on. It's for a good cause. I like the things about it, but when it comes to actually editing, I don't enjoy it that much.
That's fair. I'd say that's fair. We don't have to like every single thing you do, right?
No.
So before we get into talking about what you do, I'm just curious what your parents did for work when you were growing up, and if that had any kind of correlation at all.
Oh yeah, for sure. So my dad, he's the reason I got into like freelancing and stuff, is he runs a business out of our basement he builds computers, trading computers. So like he has a cool setup. He has two of them. Both of the setups are 6 monitors because he has to test out the trading computers because everyone he's selling to has like 6-8 monitor setups for stock trading. So he has in his office probably 24 monitors or something like that all set up. So and then he taught me a lot about running a business, and then that just led me to doing it on my own. So without him, I would not have a business. So,
Nice.
And then my mom was the principal for most of my high school, middle school, and elementary. And then she was the superintendent for my last 2 years in high school. So
Nice.
it was not very fun, but yeah.
I assume that if you got into trouble in school, she would at least get you out of it, or would she make the punishment a little bit worse?
So yeah, that's what I would always get told in school. They're like, "Oh, that's no fair. Your mom's a principal. You can get out of things." But no, in reality, is I'd get in trouble at school and I'd be grounded on the spot. I wouldn't even wait to go home and get my phone taken. It was just taken right away. I've actually had times in school where I'd be sitting on my phone in class. I didn't even realize my mom walked in. She'd just take my phone.
And
Nice.
if she didn't, it'd be gone when you got home.
Yeah.
I had a friend in grade school, whose both parents were teachers. And as soon as you mentioned that, I'm like, no, this doesn't go the way people think it does.
Yeah.
Very cool, though. Very nice. So let's hop into what you do. You had mentioned to me that you've been video editing since you were 14. I don't know about you, Jared, but I was just mowing lawns when I was 14 years old. I didn't know any of that kind of stuff.
McDonald's or Paper Road? I can't.
Yeah, I was gonna say something definitely not as cool as video editing. So
Right.
I was very impressed right off the bat when you told me that. So
Not for a job anyway. I was just digging
Yeah.
around.
right. So Nathan, tell our viewers a little about like how you got into that at such a young age.
So yeah, you said I was video editing at 14. That was professionally. I actually started video editing when I was maybe in 2nd grade in elementary
Holy
school.
Wow.
I started a Minecraft channel at a very young age, and I didn't know how to edit. And then I got free software, started editing. I loved making videos for myself, and I'd get my friends on there. And then I started making money probably in 3rd or 4th grade, and I would do like talent show videos for our school, get like 5. My mom would basically contract me to do things because she was the principal at the time. She's like, "Hey, we got something for you. I'll give you $5 to do it." So,
Nice.
and then I got into in middle school is the talent show videos. I'd get like a Subway gift card every single time it was like a $50. It was a lot at the time
Wow.
with like a $50 Subway gift card or something like that. That was like a month's worth of food.
Nice.
But
Very
so I gotta
cool.
ask early on what was the technology? I guess what was the program that you were using to edit? Because I mean, there's definitely an age gap between us, and I can remember when I first started to edit.
it was Coral. I forget the name of it, but it was like Coral something.
Okay.
It was free. I got the free trial, and I eventually got a $60 one for Christmas. But just compared to nowadays, it was
Yeah.
horrendous. It was like Corel Video Studio or something like that.
Oh my god.
It was
Actually sounds
horrendous.
familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to
Okay.
age myself, I was Windows Video Maker when
Yeah.
I first started out, and then you'd try and get your friends would hand you that pirated copy of Premiere 2, and it was so antiquated by today's standards.
Yeah.
But no, that's interesting. Just starting out on whatever you can at such a young age.
Yeah. Agreed. So, at the age of 16, you were contacted by a film and TV director to take part in editing a movie called AM Radio.
Mhm.
So, what did you do to get contacted by a film director at 16 years old?
So to back it up a little bit, at 14, I started out on Fiverr. So I probably should have mentioned that before, but I started out on Fiverr, just doing gigs and stuff. I started out really cheap, and then I kind of built my way up to where I was making around $1,000 a month at the age of 14, 15. And the movie director actually contacted me on Fiverr.
Oh, okay.
He must have just been scrolling through because he told me at the time we're a low budget movie, around $100,000 budget for this movie, and we're looking to spend around $5,000 on production for video editing, and I did about 60% of the on-screen stuff. He was also a video editor, and he would edit all the movies before he had me contracted, so he would touch up a lot of things. So I did around 60% of that, and then I also did some TV shows for him that were actually a lot better paid than the movies. But he's out in Tennessee. He was just for the TV shows he's contracted on site to go film them and edit them and stuff, and then the movies he does on his own. And I'm not sure how profitable he is on that. It's more of a passion project. He was telling me of like, I make all this money in the TV network. I want to put my name out there more as a movie director. So
Sure. It's more of an indie filmmaker, essentially.
yeah, there's a decent team behind it. The movie was AM Radio with Omar Gooding. A lot of people don't know Omar Gooding. I didn't know him before the movie, but apparently he's a decently big name. My parents have heard of him.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. So, before we go in any further into your crazy track record at such a young age, where did you learn your skills from? Were you self-taught? YouTube?
I always thought it was pretty dumb to just get taught by YouTube. I looked into courses. I did some free courses. I would never pay for a course, and I was actually told to start paying for courses because it's like, those can be really beneficial. But I was like, I really don't have the money to do that. So I'm about 50% just get into video editing software and figure things out, and another 50% of when I can't figure something out, I just look up a tutorial. But I've never went into like a huge master class that was $1,000 like some people have, or gone to film school.
Okay. So, go ahead, Jared.
Sorry, I just want to step back to the Fiverr thing. As a graphic designer, I've looked into that as well. I'm wondering how much time you put into Fiverr to build your name up enough that somebody contracted you to edit a major video or movie.
Yeah, so right now I don't put in much time, especially for the work I'm doing. It's a lot less than I put in back then. So at the time when this happened, it was the second no, it wasn't the second COVID hit. That was when I was around 16 years old, but I had a lot of time when I was 14. I started it right before I got into the summer, and like I just had so much time, and I actually failed out of like 2 classes in middle school because of it. So I think I put around maybe 50 hours a week, maybe 60.
Wow.
No social life at that point. No, nothing. Is every time my friends contacted me, I'd be like, no, I'm editing. And it got to a point of they wouldn't even invite me anymore. I was just editing, so 50, 60 hours a week when I first started out. Now it's more like 30, 40. But to
So you
to
definitely
build
put in the
yourself
hours
up.
to earn it.
Yeah, and back then it was like $5 a gig, $10 a gig,
Yeah.
and for the first 2 months it was like I'd put in maybe 50 hours to make 50 hours a week to make around maybe $200 in the first couple months.
Wow.
It was horrendous when I first started out, but can't really expect much when you're 14 years old.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true. Just to get your feet wet. It was a great opportunity, though, I'm
Mhm.
sure. Very nice. So, I guess one of my next questions would be like, in terms of the way that you learned, do you think that that would still apply to kids today, or do you think it's evolved into? Because so many times on like TikTok, Instagram, I'm always seeing these people that are advertising, like, take my course, all this kind of stuff, right? Do you think that the courses are the way to go, or do you think that kids nowadays just need to put in the time themselves and use YouTube or whatever as a second source?
So when you're self-taught, you learn a lot more, especially in terms of like this. Like my dad always taught me, he's like, if you figure it out, you will remember it for the rest of time. But if I tell you how to do it, you're not going to remember it. And that's kind of the way with courses and even YouTube videos. It's like I never use YouTube videos as like I never watched a 30-minute YouTube course. I would just Google or YouTube something of like, how do I use the green screen effect or something like that. So if you're looking to start out in video editing or graphic design or whatever, go on YouTube, look up some tutorials on how to do things, how to get started, but just try to learn things on your own. And at the very most, use Skillshare for courses. They have some pretty good courses on there that are basically YouTube videos that are a little more advanced. But that's like $10 a month for Skillshare compared to some people offering like $100 just for a course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point I was trying to make, is that all these guys that are offering courses, first and foremost, they portray somebody who's rich, and they're probably rich for a reason. It's because kids are paying $100, $200, $300 for courses that are so basic when you could be learning that stuff on your own.
Yeah, why teach it if you're so profitable?
Right. Exactly. So I'm gonna roll into the next one here. So you had applied to edit videos for a guy that goes by the name of Mr. Beast.
Yeah, who's
I'm
that?
assuming that most people know who he is. And you ended up getting accepted, and you edited the graphics for 2 of his videos, right?
Yep, on the Mr. Beast Gaming channel.
The gaming channel.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So tell us about that experience from start to finish, because obviously Mr. Beast is a very popular social media presence. So I'm sure that was a really interesting experience for you.
Yeah, so I had applied through his Discord server. Actually, he had some sort of his mods put out like we're looking for a few more video editors. Apply here. Nowhere did it say remote or on location, so I was like, okay, I'll just give it a shot. And the trial ended up being remote. It was more of a trial than actually being hired. I did the graphics for 2 of the videos, and it was used for 2 of the videos, but I was never like officially like, yeah, here's a contract, you're hired. It was just more of a, it was contracted on 2 videos as a freelancer technically, so I was never hired. But the experience with that is I talked to Mr. Beast once at the time, and at the time he wasn't he was huge. I think he was like 40 million subscribers on his main channel, and the gaming channel was around 10 million. So it's not like right now it's like 150 million where he probably wouldn't even talk to anyone. So I talked to him once for maybe 30 seconds when I was on a call with the manager guy. I actually still have that manager guy's phone number in my phone to this day. So the process was basically use Premiere, and we'd upload the footage to each other. The one guy would cut through the whole thing and like give all the clips to everything, and then I'd go through, make the graphics and After Effects, and add it all to it. So the 2 videos are linked on my website if people want to go check that out. But basically anything that pops up on screen for those 2 videos are what I did.
Nice.
Very, very cool. That's interesting. And how long ago did you do that again?
About a year and a half. You could look those 2 YouTube videos, the upload date, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks prior to the upload date of those videos. But yeah, he eventually, I was asked to go on site. He liked my work, obviously, because he used it on the YouTube videos. So I was asked to come out on site. But at the time, I was 17 years old. So
Jeez.
that wasn't really an option for me. And my
Right.
parents were not, like, especially with my mom being a superintendent at the time of yeah, sure, drop out of high school.
Yeah. So at the age of 17 to be doing video edits for a guy of that magnitude, that is absolutely impressive. Very cool. So before we get into, I guess what you can refer to as your side hustle, let's discuss this podcast that you currently edit for. It's called A Better Life with Brandon Turner.
Mhm.
How long have you been doing it, and how did you get started with it?
I was hired around 2 months ago, back in early March of 2023. He just, the producer, the guy that does all the camera work, he contacted me off of Reddit, and he thought I was a pretty good fit for it. And I actually quit my job at Republic Records to go ahead and accept this position. And it was notably less paying, but the idea of like a podcast with a meaning to it rather than just being a gear in the Republic Records system, there's just not even considering it for me. I was just jumping on that train right away, and
Wow.
now I'm working. I do every single episode, the full episode, the mediums, or what we call them, that are just like the 10-minute YouTube videos that they upload, and then I also do the shorts. I do about 10 per episode. But yeah, this podcast.
Very
So
cool.
basically, yeah, sorry. Basically, Brandon Turner, he's on the Bigger Pockets podcast. I don't know if either one of you have heard of that. But that's a real estate podcast. Brandon Turner has around 7,000 units in real estate, and he was on that podcast for a few years. I don't know how long. I didn't do too much of the research in that, but I actually listened to that quite a bit, so I thought it was an amazing opportunity. But Brandon Turner, he left that and wants to go on more of a path of helping people rather than just talking about money. So the idea of it is to bring in rich people. And obviously, you're like, oh, rich people, obviously they're living a great life, but with money becomes a lot of problems. And it's more of talking about how do they manage those problems and how do they make a better life for themselves, even with all these issues. So yeah, that's pretty much all the podcast is. And we're actually looking to expand into more separate podcasts than just the main one.
So with the podcast, are you editing the audio as well, or just video?
No, just the video. They have a whole separate team for the audio.
All right. You just seemed to like, yeah, you mentioned, I guess Corel off the bat, Premiere, After Effects, your stack there was getting larger and larger.
Yeah, and it's funny. I actually use DaVinci Resolve for one specific client. They paid for it. They're like, well, we have a team and we need you to use this software. If we buy it for you, can you learn it? So I use DaVinci Resolve for them, Premiere for these guys, and I use Vegas for the past 10 years. So I sometimes just revert back to that because I'm most familiar with it.
So you've got a lot of different softwares under your belt. Do you take, I guess, the same approach as you did right off the bat with learning Corel as you do all the other softwares? Are they all fairly similar, just different layouts? Because I know, like, with After Effects, I'm trying to learn that too, and it's very daunting and overwhelming.
The whole like Premiere and After Effects Adobe package I bought probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I didn't learn it for maybe a year or two because of how daunting it was. Because Vegas is like its own separate type of video editing software, along with Corel. They're on the same thing, and those are easier to learn, and they have a lot to them. But it takes a lot more manual labor in Vegas to do like these things. Like you can do animations in Premiere pretty easily, but in Vegas it's like you have to specifically keyframe everything, and there's not a lot of presets for it or anything. But looking at Premiere took me a year or two to get into it until a separate job that Republic Records, they required me to use Premiere, so I had to learn it. But to take the approach to it, yeah, same approach. Learn it as much as I can on my own, and then go to YouTube when I'm stumped on a few things.
Sure. Yeah, I use DaVinci Resolve myself. Just started using it like 3 months ago. So it's not bad. I had come from more of an audio editing background, but it definitely had its learning curve for sure. Definitely used a lot of YouTube when I first started using it. I feel like I got it down pretty good now. So
yeah.
How do you like it?
It's my least favorite software, but
really? Okay.
yeah,
That's fair.
but I do like it. It's very similar to Premiere in like the button, like all the presets and the buttons you press, basically, because Vegas is a million times different. But it was easy to go from Premiere to DaVinci. But
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
there's some differences, and Premiere is obviously better. I mean, they sell more. So
Right. Yeah, and I actually use the free version of DaVinci, which pretty much has everything that I need on it. It's fantastic.
yeah, the paid version is just like you get more color coding effects and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
There's not much more to it that unless you are actually working on a big production, like you're using it for YouTube, you don't need the advanced one.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump over now to your side hustle where you are the boss, and you had explained to me that you are hiring young editors. And essentially you're just using them to edit audio right now for YouTubers, correct?
Yeah. Audio, and like if they send me a 2-hour VOD of them on a Twitch stream or something, I have an editor cut that up into like a 10-minute video for me to do the advanced effects.
Sure. So how long have you been doing this, and about how much, if you're comfortable with this, how much are you making working for YouTubers?
Yeah, so I mean, freelancing. I've been freelancing since I was 14, but about 2 years ago is when I started kind of outsourcing it. I've never liked the idea of fully outsourcing it. It really, because I like to keep things under my name rather than saying we're an agency. So keep
Right.
it under my name, and I explain to every single client I have of I will be doing the majority of the actual editing, but I do contract out the easy work. So if you're not okay with that, we won't be able to continue. But I just don't like the idea of just complete outsourcing, but just to keep it under my name and stuff like that. But when it comes to outsourcing that, I contract 2 editors at a time, and I have them for a span of usually 3 to 8 months. And around 6 to 8 months, I'll go out and I will find them a job basically whenever they're ready. I had my last editor, his name is Ty, and he's actually leaving to go edit for a YouTuber that he found on his own, but he left. He had me give him a reference letter to that. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Nice. So obviously, being that you're helping editors, are they around like the same age as you? Are they younger, kind of like when you started? Is it kind of all over the
The
place?
age differs a lot. Normally so I've had 4 before this, and I'm on my 5th one right now. One was 35 years old.
Okay.
And yeah, he was looking to get into editing. I had one that was 28. I think he's probably 29 now, and he's Massachusetts, and now I forget where he works, but he works for some sort of an agency that pays pretty well. But he
Nice.
was 29, and then the other 3 are all in high school or graduated. I think the one I just hired is 17, and then
Very
the other
cool.
2 I hired when they were 18 in their senior year.
And you're essentially starting from scratch with them, or do they come in with a little bit of experience? You're just kind of helping it along, or how does it kind of work?
4 out of the 5 of them have edited a video or 2 before. They know the basics of the software, but one of
Okay.
them contacted me. He's like, I'm in high school, I'm 18, but I really, really want to get into this stuff. Can you help me? I'll work for you for free as long as it takes, as long as you teach me. And he ended up doing 1 video for free for me, and then I paid him from then on, and then eventually got him a job working for someone else. But yeah, he started out knowing nothing, and we hopped on a Zoom call every week or so, and basically taught him everything he knows.
Very cool. Very cool. That's very respectable too. So being 20 years old and having the work ethic that you do is, from my perspective, is very impressive. Where did that derive from? Where did that come from?
Being in high school, I never really got the whole persona of go out and party, spend all your money, go save up $5,000 and buy a Gucci bag. I've loved the idea of having generational wealth, and I've loved the idea of being able to get to a point where I could afford these things rather than save up and buy something now and just have it and be broke after I buy something. So I've always loved the idea of having basically generational wealth or just long-term wealth sort of thing. And I've just been completely motivated. Like, I'm not even close to where I want to be. Like right now, I feel like I'm at the 5% of the way through where I want to be. video editing isn't even touching the surface of where I want to be. Right now I'm actually in the process of making a website. This is actually the first time I've ever publicly said anything about it, but it's called Creator Ties. Basically, it's Fiverr but better.
Cool.
So
Nice.
I'm not going to say too much about it because it has never been done before. So
Very cool.
Nice.
we have a whole team behind that. But basically, where my drive has come from is, to sum it up, if you watch a TikTok video that says you want to have cool cars, you got to work hard. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's coming from a guy who's 31 years old. Jared, you're older than me.
Yeah.
This kid's got it, man. Like,
Well, I mean, when I was, 16, 17, I was pissing away my money on video games.
seriously. Yeah.
My
Yeah, I was there at one
E7
point too.
Tercel.
yeah, I think I spent $500 on Madden one year when I was 15 years old. And after that, it was just like, I want that money. Why did I
Yeah.
spend it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very, very respectable. And I think a lot of kids could definitely learn a thing or two from you, and already are, obviously, with
Right.
you teaching them. So kudos to you, man.
So I gotta ask you, with being so successful, and I do mean successful, especially compared to where I was at your age.
Yep.
What do your parents think about? I guess everybody you're working with, working for, the money you're bringing in. I mean, you're doing things that people in, what am I now, 39, aren't even close to doing. So, what do your parents think of that?
Back in high school, they actually they pretty much hated it, especially both of them. Neither of them missed a single day of high school. Both of them never got less than an A in college or high school, and they love school, and they love the aspect of get great grades, be successful, go to college, as most parents are. So
Right.
they did not like it at whatsoever. I mean, my dad sometimes thought it was actually pretty cool, but because from him owning a business, but more of the aspect of you need to get good grades. So focus on that.
Yeah.
As long as you have good grades, you can focus on your editing business. And there was actually a point where I was grounded for, I think it was 2 weeks from editing, and I had to postpone a couple clients' videos for that.
Explain
So-
that to a client. Can't give you your video. I'm grounded.
Yeah, it was rough because those at that, I think I was 16 at that point, and it was for a couple of YouTubers. So it was a few $100s in projects.
Oh,
But now, I mean, they're proud of what I do. They would have rather had me go to college and be an engineer, but
well, that's the funny thing too, and something I realized too, being, I guess, old man yells at cloud. It's a new day in the sense that school is not always everything. With the internet and the connectivity of the world, there are ways to get to where you want without school. I'm not going to say it's very rare, but it is rare, and you have to have the drive and motivation, like you obviously do, to do it. And I guess like our last guest, who's got drive and motivation to do what he wants to do. But yeah, school is not always everything. And I get your parents' perspective on that, where like go to school, get good grades, and you can set yourself up for the future. But obviously, you've got the drive, the motivation, the determination to do what you want to do. So I mean, kudos on that. And I guess as you grow up, you're gonna be seeing that for your kids if you have kids, or I guess
Yeah.
the kids you're hiring too.
yeah, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with school. Like education, even I, like in the next couple of years, I'm going to be taking a real estate course at our local college here, and that's going to be a couple $1,000s. And there's nothing wrong with going out and taking a couple $1,000 course as long as it's actually benefiting you, and you're not just taking it to get rich or something. Well, obviously taking it to get rich, but don't expect to get rich right away. Like there's nothing wrong with education. I just hate the aspect of you're 18, you have to go to college, and you have to be $60,000 in debt.
Yeah,
It's just from my point of view, there's no reason to go to college. There's no reason to start out my life $60,000 in debt. Like I'd still be in college right now. I'd only be a sophomore, or maybe junior. No, I'd still be a sophomore in college right now. So
just to
there'd
get
be
that piece of paper, right?
yeah, there's just no point to it. But if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be an engineer, of course you have to.
Right.
I'm not going to go out here and say I hate college. College is stupid. It comes in certain circumstances,
Yeah.
and some people just have to learn that it's not everything.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I want to ask too, and this is just more for me, because I'm neurotic like this. A lot of people have said, and I mean, I do graphic design work for my work. I went to school for graphic design. People ask me why I don't freelance or anything like that, and for me, it's I never think my work is good enough. If that makes sense, I don't want to put myself out there. I don't feel like people should be paying me for it because it's not good enough. Have you ever experienced that? And if you did, how do you push through it?
So I've probably had two circumstances where I was like, this work isn't good. And I've actually canceled on those two clients in the past of I'm just not capable of doing this work. And one of them was Nathan Doan, the comedy YouTuber.
Okay.
He has around 3 million subscribers now, I think. But at the time, he was around 1.2 million. And he gave me the work. He paid me half up front. And I got into it. I'm like, I can't do it. I was 15 at the time. I just told him, I'm like, this is just not in my range at the moment. Maybe in a couple of years we can come back and work together. And then I did that for another client that was a little bit of a smaller YouTuber. No one really know him, but basically, if you ever feel that way, you don't take the money and run. You don't give them bad work. You cancel on them. You tell them you're not going to be able to do it. And you give them the money back if they paid you at all. And that's just the way I view it. But just going from the absolute bottom of $5 per package to up to, I've done $800 videos for freelancing work. And I've never really had too much experience of this work sucks and I don't want to give it to them because I've started so low that at $5, it's like if I literally give them a piece of trash, it's still $5 that they paid me. Yeah. So okay. It's definitely something there, and I've experienced it. Cool. As long as you start low.
No, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Do you have anything else before I get into the last question, Jared?
No, that's what I had.
Okay.
My own little hang-ups.
Yeah. So, I asked this question to everybody. This will be an interesting answer from you, I feel like, though, because this was only 2 years ago for you.
Yeah.
So if you could give advice to your 18-year-old self, fresh out of high school, what would it be?
Don't diversify. And this was even for myself when I was 16, 17. I've always thought like, oh, editing is cool. I'm making decent money, but there's always something better. There's always something better I can get into. I've tried affiliate marketing. I've tried social media marketing agencies. I've tried literally everything ever online, and nothing's ever worked out. I always got mad that nothing worked out. And there'd be points where I've had a couple months, even when I was 17 years old, where I only made like $500 from video editing. And that was because I was trying new things. And what I would tell myself back then is just stick to one thing. I don't care what it is. Even if it's not video editing, stick to one thing for more than a couple weeks and don't expect to succeed right away. And that's actually why I've got to this point now. Is a few years ago, I realized this is stupid. Why am I trying so many more things when I have something right here? I have a pretty good background in it. And why don't I just double down on it and really, really try? And I see so many people nowadays just trying so many new things. I mean, it's cool you're trying new things, but it's never going to succeed. Like you drop ship you try 2 different products for drop shipping and you give up because it didn't work out. And then you go try affiliate marketing. It's just like, it never works out. So especially if you're already good at something, like if you wanted to start some successful graphic design business, that's what you would do because it's graphic design. You wouldn't go start a video editing business because you haven't worked in it for 10 years. It's what you're good at, or learn to be good at something and stick to it.
You're also splitting your focus too, it sounds like.
Yeah. People always say that you learn more things, it's better, but no, it's not. I doubled down on my video editing business 3 years ago and I quadrupled my profits.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. It's totally true.
You can go on 100. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
I was going to say that's a great piece of advice because you see all these people like we were talking about earlier with TikTok and stuff, like they're flexing on everybody saying, oh, I got this, and this by doing these few things. But you put all your eggs into so many different baskets when you should be putting all your eggs into one, perfect that basket, and then move on to the next thing before you start. You're just taking on too many things at one time. And it makes no sense.
Yeah. And I think it was Alex Hormozy who said this. all roads lead to Rome, but if you stick to one, that's how you're going to get there. You're not going to get there by jumping road to road to road.
Yep.
Got to stick
Exactly.
to
Wow, that's deep.
It is, isn't it?
You're getting real philosophical.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I appreciate your time today. Unless you got anything else that you wanted to shoot out to our listeners, any other piece of advice? I will say that I knew that you were going to be pretty smart when I first started messaging you, but I wasn't expecting you to have this kind of head on you, man. You are very impressive at 20 years old.
Well, a
Appreciate
lot more
it.
mature beyond your age too. I
Yeah,
gotta
for
say.
sure.
Smarts
Yeah, I'm
is
sure.
one thing, but the maturity to match it, like
Yeah.
seriously, you have an attitude that I know like a lot of 30, 40-year-olds don't even have.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure my friends are out there partying it up every weekend.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, just keep on with that mindset, man. And if
Yeah.
it sounds like you want to get into real estate too, which we did have a guy on a episode recently who owns a real estate business. If you want to go back and listen to that, he's got some really good information in there. But that's definitely an avenue to get into. That's very, very smart, because obviously that's something that's never going to go away. We're all going to have some place to live, right?
right.
Mm-hmm.
So getting into the real estate market, especially at your age, is a very, very smart move. So, but yeah, man, I appreciate your time. Do you have anything that you wanted to shout out? Like if anybody's trying to contact you for anything or no?
My website is tssvideoediting.com, and maybe in a year from now, go look up creatorties.com, because that's soon to come.
Yeah,
It's going to be the best way for a YouTuber to get in touch with a video editor or graphic designer.
very
So,
cool. We
and
might have
then
to do a
just-
follow-up episode in a year
Yeah,
once it kicks off.
And then Nathan Johnson on YouTube.
Cool.
Awesome. Sounds good, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you and appreciate your time. And we will see you guys next week. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Otherwise, make sure you go and follow Nathan. This kid is bright beyond his years, man, I will tell you. So, again, thank you, my friend. And we will see you guys next week.